Moving on to the rear axles and rear chassis. Now, you're going to need some chain. This is a number 25 chain. You're going to need a chain, whatever these guys are called. They're supposed to connect the two pieces of chain together. Some may say just, disconnect it here and connect it with the other one. And this is easy. This is the easy button. We press easy buttons around here. So the length of this chain, right? You're going to buy a piece of it from AliExpress. You'll follow the link. And then you're going to see it starts from 0 all the way to 290. So it should be an inside piece. Notice the inside, not the outside link. And an inside link. Okay? The reason why is because when we use this locking link, this is going to connect the two pieces together so that you have a chain that's like this. We don't want the chain super tight because it needs to have a little bit of flex. This even is maybe a little bit too soft, but I've done a little bit of testing and for now it seems to be okay. If I need to make adjustments, I'll just push these guys out a millimeter and then there you go. This down here is also probably going to be an adjustment where I will probably add more of a ramp here to tighten this up so that you have this making the connection at the bottom, but in any case it was too tight when I originally did it, so I shortened it up a touch. Now some of you may say, but this is not like the real machine. It doesn't matter what the real machine does, it matters what I do. And for the past 3 years my other grader has worked flawlessly with this setup, so why would I change anything if this works for 3 years with no problems? That's what happens. You design something that works. So this works for me, it will work for you. This is just how it is. I'll test it, make sure. But anyways, we're going to do that. Now, another key important thing, make sure you put some grease or something in here because this will be loud. Chain rubbing on plastic. You can hear that. That's loud. So if we put grease, it'll be smooth and quiet. Now, I'll show you how to put it all together. You're going to need to get some M6 rod and you're going to have to cut these grooves in there. They're important because there's lock nuts, set screws in here that lock that together so they all move together. So I'll tell you the measurements of where these notches need to be made as well, and the lengths of this, and the length of the shaft that goes over there, that goes to the motor, and then goes inside here. So let's go. All right, so you're gonna get your M6 rod, and you're gonna cut it down to 37 mils, 38 if you want to be safe or comfortable, but 37. This one's like right there. Then there's going to be 2 different notches you need to cut out. The first one's going to be about, I'd say, 7 mils in and about 6 mils wide. And then from the other side, you're going to have one that's from about 10 mils in to 7 mils wide. Okay, so you do that 4 times. On this guy, we're going to find out where that axle placement is later once we put the motor in, so we can make those adjustments to make sure that the mesh on this gear with the gear that goes on the motor, when it's 90 degrees, we know where it's smooth and it's not binding, and then we'll mark it and make a notch there. So we'll do that in a second. Okay, so we're going to install the motor on here. Now, don't mind all the hack job here. I was trying to figure out which holes to use, and then the sizing of this wasn't accurate, so I'm going to go back and I'm going to readjust it so these holes are perfect. But the idea is you only use these middle screws and these top 2, but do not use the bottom ones. The bottom ones are in the way of the actual gear. So they will eat into there because this needs to be almost flush with this, but just off a little bit. So essentially you're going to put some M3 by 8s or M3 by 10s, my mistake, M3 by 10s, 2 of those there. If you really want to go all strength, put 2 more at the top, but you don't really need it. This is just to hold it in position. I'm using 100 RPM, but I may switch it to a 60 RPM depending on how much torque I need. If I really need to go faster or slower, I may switch to 60 because slower looks more accurate. So I may actually take this 100 and put the 60 in. It's 12 volts. And now the shaft. We need a shaft that is, I'm thinking 100 and something, 120, 108, 120. Yeah, you're going to want to go with the 120 millimeter shaft. Mine's just under a little bit because I ground down the edge a little bit too much. But 120, and then this little notch is for the gear itself because you have to put the set screw in there. So the set screw will go like that, and this goes 42 millimeters in. You do a 6 millimeter wide gouge, okay? So you can see I gouged it so that it's flat. And what that does is it gives this set screw a place to hit flat. And then when the motor turns it, it turns the whole shaft. Now we're going to have to do it again on this side, and I'll show you what that looks like. And while my wife interrupts me. All right, let's quickly go over the dimensions here for this rod. 120 millimeters, 42 in from one side, make a 6 millimeter gouge so that your set screw can set on there from the gear. And then from here for the other outside gears, you're going to go 5 to 6 millimeters in, and then a 6 millimeter groove. Same here. It's about 6 millimeters in, and then 6 millimeter cut. So 6 millimeters in, 6 millimeter cut. Just do it so that it's flat. Okay, so you have something for the set screw to attach to, because when this goes on, you're going to put the set screw in. This guy's a little bit rough. We have to clean him out. Essentially what you do is you put this on, and then you tighten down your set screw and it stays there. But for this one, it should be like this. And then that's going to go in, and then the gear from the motor goes here. And then these guys, they go like this, and they go on. But I got to clean out some of the inside here because there's a little bit of metal shavings that are holding this from going on all the way. But essentially that'll go like that, and then that gear, that set screw will go right there, while this gear is like this. So we'll show you how this all goes together now. All right, so you're going to put your gears in. So this one, tighten down your set screw. Again, the gap here is about a millimeter, 2 millimeters, maybe maximum 1.5 millimeters, something like that. And then you're going to bring this one in till the gears mesh, but they're not binding. So here there's just enough slack, and I've tightened this down on the groove that I've put. Now we're going to get the casings. We're going to put the gears in the chain, gears in the chain, and then these drives. Now these ones here, these ones have specific dimensions as well. So these are about 37 mils long. So cut them 37. 38's okay too. And then from the first one, you're going to go about 10 millimeters in, and then a 6 millimeter groove. And from the outside, you're going to go 6 millimeters and then a 6 millimeter groove. Okay, do that the 4 times. And now we'll install this. So the one with the longer shaft here is going to go on the inside, and the one with the shorter, sorry, not the longer shaft, longer shaft and then the shorter shaft. So the longer shaft goes in. It's one of these. And before you do that, right, we want to put this on, and then we'll tighten it down to where we needed to tighten it. So essentially you'll put this down in here, put this on, tighten the set screw, and then take it out, and then do it to the other side. And then we're going to assemble the chain, put that in, and then this middle one will tighten it from the outside here so that it's all lined up perfectly, because we want to make sure the chain is equal on both sides. So let's look at that. All right, now what we've done is we put the shaft in. We've got our shaft at 22.5 millimeters on each side. Okay, we tightened down our grub screws, made a good mesh so that the gears are tight enough, but they're not grinding against each other. We put in our bearings here. These are the 6 by 10 by 3 or 4. I can't remember the ones, but the ones that'll fit the 6mm shaft, those are the ones that you're going to be putting in there. And they fit in this hole. They're the exact same ones that you'll put in here. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Yes, one's missing here because it's on there. And then you're going to have 1, 2, and then another 1, 2. So, what do we want to do here? Well, this is going to move. If you press on this hard enough, it's going to push it over, and then it's not going to be lined up. So we need to make sure that we keep this. Now, how's that going to keep it from shifting side to side? Well, once we put these guys on and then we tighten down these grub screws, right, it'll press up against this bearing, and then that'll keep the tightness. All right, it's just how I did it with the other one. I didn't have any issues. So what we'll do is we'll make sure we hold this and we push this on gently. Make sure that it goes all the way and that this bearing is seated, and there you go. So what we want to do is make sure that the notch is facing out so we have the most chance to go in and tighten it. What we need to do is now grab our gears, grab this guy, make sure that he's lined up with the set screw on the way that we need him, okay? So where is my guy? Right here. Alright, so we're going to want to have him facing sort of this direction with the set screw. And then we're going to slide it all on as one. Okay, so the chain here and there, all this is one assembly. So let's try it out. First, we'll put this guy on the other side so I have something to balance with. It's not just going everywhere. Okay, now again, make sure that this is relatively in the middle. Pull. Make sure the sprocket sits in here. It's roughly where we want it. And then we will line this up and fit it on. Okay. And then we can move the chain as we need, but we want to slide this guy all the way on. Loosen our grub screw maybe a little bit. There we go. And then we'll have the grub screw down all the way. And we'll crank him down. So now he's in. And these guys will go into their position. And just make sure that we have slack everywhere we need it. And then we'll test it out. So if you did everything right, then if you test your motor, everything should move nice and smooth. No binding. And that's how you do it. Now, just make sure when you are putting these on, okay, when you're setting the set screw here, make sure you are pushing this gear as tight as possible as you can while making sure that the other side is staying in its position, because you don't want this to do any flexing, right? You want it to be perfectly tight. Enough that it rotates smoothly, right? And then this is poking out. It could poke out, you know, if you want to go an extra millimeter or two longer, you can. But just make sure it's snug. And then what you can also do here is make final adjustments with this set screw inside. Again, these shafts here, the closer you have the flat edge further out, so I'd say like maybe even 5 millimeters from in, and then a 6 to 7 millimeter gouge, that's better, or even 4 millimeters. The whole point of that is to make sure that the set screw doesn't sit and then push it out if it's on the inside or the outside. So that's important. Now, once you've done that, you can get the outside piece and put it over. Now make sure, again, your gears are all lubricated, so put grease in here so that they're quiet. This is okay to be this kind of slack, because once it starts moving, the motor will spin the gears as I showed you. And then you'll put this on top. Make sure that this guy is poking out, and then fasten everything. Make sure that these are all in. Okay, see how it clicks in place, and then this is almost flush. Then you're going to make sure you get your box, put the screws here. These are M2 by 12s, one on each side. If you want to do just an M2 piece of rod, you can do that as well. And then we're going to put some M2 by 12s in here to secure all this. And then we're going to work on the wheels. And there's something special about these wheels because one or two of them, depending, will have 2 holes on it. And the reason why is because of some of these shafts. See how the grub screw goes towards the hole here? And then there's other ones where the grub screw goes in between the holes. So it's not lined up. It's like these guys didn't care. But anyways, that's for you to work on. Before we get started the assembly, I know this looks like we're almost done here, but each side has this notch. So remember, the right side one is very specific to the right side because it has this notch and it's facing forward. And this notch, right? So this is for when the rear articulates. It doesn't run into the back, which is this piece here. So when we go to assemble this, right? Oh, where are we? When we go to assemble, it does this, and we don't want it to hit. Okay? So that's what that's for. So remember, each side is very specific. Alright, let's connect the back to the front. We'll run all the wires after, but this is just to show you guys how it's all done. I'm probably going to take it all apart after, but essentially you're going to get some M3 by 12 button head screws. Why? Because we just don't need, I mean, we can open this up a little bit more, you can have more space, but button head's way to go. Also 4 by 7 by 2.5 with a 4mm shaft. You may want to sand this down slightly so that it smoothly goes through, because if not, it's going to bind up and it's going to be impossible to push through. Even right now, this one's pretty snug. So I would suggest just going ahead and giving this a little bit of a light sand so that the tolerances aren't that bad. And then you're going to shove this all the way through. So make sure that the top of these guys are sitting on top of this guy here. All right, and then just screw these screws in. So essentially push it in like that, and then make sure you guide these guys on after. It's a little bit easier to show you once I've got one side in, and then we'll go from there. Next, we're going to put the hubs onto the rims. Now on the back, when you 3D print this, it may look like this. Alright, clean it all out, make it nice and smooth. It's not going to be a major problem, but you'll put your hubs on, and you're going to put on 2, 3, or 4, however many screws you want. So these are M3 by 6, 6 being the maximum length you'll want to put in here, because it will not go any deeper because the wheel is actually pretty narrow. It's not as deep as I'd like it to be, but in any case, make sure you line up your set screw with the hole. Now, in some cases, people who make these hubs don't make them so that the set screw falls in the same spot. So that's where it's supposed to be. It's in line with the screw, but because they decided to shift it over a little bit, it's not in the right spot. So just get a drill bit, 3mm, drill a hole, and then that's where you're going to put your set screw. Well, you're going to drive your Allen key through there to tighten it up. Now when we do put these on the actual hubs, we need to do one thing first, and that is putting the tires on, because to put the tires on after is a bit of a bear. These tires are very hard. They're not as soft as the other ones for the original grader, and I'll make those available too because they're the same hub and style, so it'll just be a little bit slightly different depth on here, and they're going to be slightly wider and a little bit narrower, or sorry, I guess not as wide with the diameter, so it'll be a little slightly different, but they're those King Kong style military spec tires. Now we'll put these on and then make sure they're nicely attached, and then you're going to slide that on, and then you're going to push the wheel in a little bit so you can get the hole for the set screw to tighten it down to this shaft here. Alright, let's do that next. Now that the back tires are on, you'll tighten the set screws up on the flat spots. Make sure there's no end play. Now you will have some little bit of movement, right? And that's only because the gears there's a little bit of slop in the chain, so that's why you have that. But we can always fix that later and see after testing if it makes a difference. Now let's start putting on the back and then work our way to get the front neck on here. Before we wrap up the bottom parts here, we'll do all the electrical after, but you'll know that positive, negative, ESC, the controller, but this guy's got to go on first. And so there's 2 holes here. Actually, there's 3 holes, so you understand how this works. I put 3 holes. 2 are for the screws, 1, 2. This middle one is if you ever want to take this out, there's a cover plate that goes on here, and you can pop that cover plate out by just poking through that hole. So that's what that's for. There's this little yellow plate, and we'll put that on after so it covers up the holes. It's the only way I could kind of figure out how to get this to look like it was never even installed. This is going to slide on over here. It's a snug fit, so just make sure you push it on all the way, and hopefully it all lines up. Should go in, and then you fasten the 2 screws on each side. They're going to be an M2 by 12. Alright, another thing we need to do here, add some magnets. And there's a few spots where you need to put magnets. Make sure you know your polarities, because if you put it in wrong one way, then it's hard to take them out. But there's a magnet that goes here, a magnet that goes there, one goes there, one goes there, and one goes on this side. Alright, these are all pressed in, so if you need, make sure that you have a pair of pliers or something with a piece of wood on one side so you don't scratch up your paint. But essentially you're going to press them in and make sure that they, on both sides of the parts, are attracted to each other. Now the magnets should be in. You should have a magnet there, magnet there, magnet there, magnet there, magnets all around. So when you go and put this part in, it'll just sit there. Now that's not the only thing that's going to hold it in place, because we're going to have an interior like battery box that'll screw into this to hold it in place. But I tried something different here, see if we can have some magnets in there. And then there's a magnet on the back here, and we'll talk about how to put this together later, but I put the magnet on the bottom, magnet there, so when this closes, right, so this is going to be on a hinge, it'll open like this, and then it'll close just like that. So it'll have proper clearances there, and then this will be up a little bit, and then we'll go from there. But you're starting to get the idea of what it's going to look like. So let's move on to the next part. One thing I forgot to add, these little plates, they have holes on the back, they're flat on the front, they go right here, one on each side, and you push it in until it's just recessed, and if you tighten those screws down enough, it should be pushed in like that. Cool. Alright, so we've done a few things here. We've attached the cylinders. Now yours is going to look like it, well, in the video it looks like it's at the very end, but the ones you're going to have are a little bit further up, because I realized they're not supposed to be there, they're supposed to be up here, and I'll have the revised file for you. We've attached this motor here. So the motor consists of the main body and outside a collar, and then the actual cylinder itself. So if we look at it, we're going to attach it with some M2 by 6 screws to hold it. So this is going to pivot over here. Okay, so it's going to pivot up, down, wherever the mold board's going to go. All right. Not too tight, it has to be able to pivot. And then you're going to cut this to about 32 mils, the shaft, the screw drive for this motor, okay? This motor is a 12 volt screw drive that's like 100 or 200 mils per second, something like that. But anyways, you'll see it's different than the rest when it comes to its speed. These guys, they're held in by some M3 by 6, I believe, or M3 by, what are they, M3 by 6 pins. M3 by 6 pins. Again, I'm going to probably revise it. Instead of having all this fanciness, just have M3 screws that are 6, and it'll actually screw into this and hold there and pivot. But the reason I did this is because there's bearings and it should be a little bit stronger. But I realized there's no way the mold board's coming up this high at any point. But we'll see once we start testing. And then what you're going to do is you're going to, if you want, cut the head off of this because you're never going to use it for anything else unless you want to. Keep it on. But I cut it off so it looks a little bit more realistic. I know it's still square. It'd be nice if this was all cylindrical. But at least I have this collar on here to make it look more like one big thing. You're going to split the wires. Try to paint them black so it looks authentic. Run them into this opening here. Okay, there's like 1, 2, then this third opening is a little bit bigger with a actual notch out of the top. And you're gonna run these wires not all the way in, but just enough, and then you're gonna tuck them in to go to the back. You're gonna have to extend them because they're the ones that come with these linear servos, but essentially you're gonna want to have this down like this. Okay, probably a zip tie or something holding them. And then they're going to need to have a little bit of slack because they do need to rotate out. They'll rotate in, right? Back and forth. There's got to be enough movement for this, okay? Most likely it's going to be mostly like that. Never really like this. But you want it so that at any point, even if it's horizontal, it's got enough movement. All right, so let's move on to, and then here's actually an example with the M3 by 6. Goes into these 2 bearings, and those are the collar bearings. All right, one on the outside here, one on the outside of this guy, and then you push your M3 in, and then you're going to get your little outside plate, put an M3 by 4, secure this, and it stops that M3 by 6 pin falling out, so it stays secure. And there you have it. Let's move on to attaching the mold board now. Okay, so putting the mold board on, you're gonna get some M2 by 10 screws, 4 of them, and put this collar on. There's 2 ways to put the collar on. The bigger concave piece goes out, the flatter piece goes facing in. You'll notice because there's a recess here for the screws to fit inside. So you'll know that that's the outside. Fasten those down snug, but not too tight, because you don't want to strip out the threads and then have more problems. But anyways, there you go. Mold board is in. Now we're going to attach the cylinders to the mold board, and then we're going to start working our way back. A quick video here. Got some nice bolts on there for the wheels. Front's already installed. We got the mold board. Everything works, everything functions. But I've run into a little challenge. I didn't create enough space for this guy right here. This actuator. I need to create some extra space so it can fit inside that area. And then the other thing I realize is these are set too low. They should be a little bit higher, so that way we get the full stroke of the actuator. But other than that, looking good. Need to make more room for all the wires coming in. I'm using 28 gauge, so it gives me a little bit of space, and 24 gauge for these guys. Yeah, moving on to the back, which is already half done. All right, gotten a little bit further today. Put the wheels on. Got those studs. Front suspension's all assembled. We just need the cables to make it look like it's the real thing. Mouldboard is attached. The neck is done. These guys, these actuators, I need to change these collars to move this point up a little bit. Probably, I don't know, say 30 millimeters. I got to make an adjustment here to this part, this assembly here, or this piston and rod. It's too tight, so I've got to adjust that point. Everything else seems to be good. Just need to fasten this on. Everything looks good here. Cable management, trying to run all the cables through. It's really tight in here. There's not a lot of space because I only have it on the top tray, but I've made some adjustments so that it will fit on the final version. But yeah, moldboard slides and it tilts. It rotates. Rotation I'm a little iffy on because the motor seems a little bit weak compared to the others. Maybe it's the gearing or something, but everything else moves really quick. That one is a little bit slow. May change the motor out. And I may also change that motor to be a 60 RPM versus 100 RPM. And we won't show the gearing there because not everybody's a big fan of it, and that's fine. But it works. There you go. Now on to the rear section and the cab. Finalize everything, do some testing. And then for all of you who are interested, yes, this will be posted on Cults when it's all done and said. Let's move on to the engine bay. There's going to be a few things that we need to assemble. And first off, probably one of the easiest ones is to just attach this to the top, but we can't do that just yet because we need to put this on here first onto this tray, which is sort of the battery tray, and then any ESCs and whatnot if you want to put that there. This goes on like this, and then this attaches after because some of the screw heads will be covered. So we put that after. Now it's probably going to be a little bit harder to put those 3 screws on, but they just go in there. And we also want to make sure that we attach this first to the main body because it'll be difficult to put in those 4 M2 screws into the rear chassis. So there will be an order for all this, but before we do anything, we can start assembling things. So we can either do the back here, which hinges on this, and then we can install the side doors if we'd like to. These doors should actually go on first, I should say, because they are an interference type fit. What do I mean by interference? Once they go on here, there's no way to get to this and put in either a screw or even a like rod, like a 12 millimeter M2 by 12 millimeter. So I'm using the rods here, and these are just M2 by 12s, and they're just going to slide in here and hold this together so they're press fit, and it should make the hinges work nice and smooth. Also remember when you are painting that there's going to be paint that gets in the way, so just know that you should clean all the paint off of the faces that are going to be connecting to each other, and then that way you won't have any problems with the fitment. And so I've already scratched off the paint between these 2 pieces. And what you can do too is you can put this in a vise, press it, or get some clamps and just press these in. These are pretty tight. If you use the screws will go in nice and easy, just as long as you do not open up the inside threads. You can open up the outside one to like make sure it's 2 millimeters, and then the inside will stay the tighter for the threads to screw into. So put those on both sides. Alright, now that you have these in, if you used your M2 by 12 screws or you just used pins like I did, that's fine. Assembled. Now, next we can do one of 2 things. Either put in these bars, these handrails I would say, and those are going to be glued in place. So you're going to push them through till they're flush on the back and just put a drop of CA glue or cyocyanate or whatever they're called, type crazy glue. Anyways, that goes in like this, okay? And it's just flush with the inside. So you can feel on the inside it's just touching. And then the door handles here, these are going to be glued in, but they're going to be in this way. So they'll look like they're upside down, and you'll glue them in with that little tab that's at the bottom there. And that'll be glued in as well. Okay, these are all decorative pieces. And if you're painting, make sure you do your painting and put whatever you're going to put on here. This is for this particular machine. I won't name the name because you guys know what it could be. And so now we're going to put the back piece here and attach it and screw it in from the inside out. So you can see there's like a recess in here, and you're going to put it in here, and then you're going to screw it in on an angle with the thing open. And you're going to need one of those types of Allen keys that have the little stub on it that can screw things in on an angle. So that's how you're going to do that, like this. You can also use a regular one and slowly thread it in, but this is how I'm going to do it. Now, in case you are going to be doing any wiring or other things that require you to manipulate this piece, please do that all first and then attach this at the very end, but I'm just showing you how it would go in. It would go in this way from the inside out, and that's how you would have that piece. Another thing here, these lights, they go in, they fold in and out. They're M2 by 12 as well, and so you'll get an M2 by 12 and you'll drive it through the inside, and that's going to go in and secure the lights. Now the lights are important if you're going to be using lights. These will be the red brake lights, and depending on the sound unit and the lighting, that's your choice. I'm going with the Beer SFR1 system. Reason why? Well, that's what my original Volvo grader was based off of, the one I never posted. So this new machine that we're making is going to have the true lights, and they'll just tuck up inside here, and then when you need to use them, you pull them out, and it's pretty snug in there because of the paint, and then you'll pull them out, and then they'll be like that. You'll have your red lights there, and these are going to be your reverse lights. Now there's these little pods that I put. These are for 3mm lights. Same with this, 3mm. Now I did mention in the parts there's these lights, and interesting enough, they fit this space. You'd have to glue them on from the outside, but you can run the wire all the way back to your light system, and these are 12 volts, so you don't have to worry about doing anything extra to make them work. This is just gonna plug in, and it's 12 volts right off the bat. So there you go. That's one way I'm going to be doing it, is running it through here with these lights and then push them back in. So there you go. On to the next part. Okay, a little trick. If you have that chrome pen, put some of that chrome pen inside these little light bezels. The reason why is when you go and put your light in here, it'll reflect off of this and give it more light. Now, this is the reverse lights, but there's a hole in the back. You push your 3mm in. There you go. And then what you do is, from behind, there's 3 little tabs. Those 3 little tabs, the bottom one, the middle one is facing down. The other 2 are the outside. And it goes inside here in this hole. And then you just push it in until it snaps in place. And then you know you've gone far enough. Then do that for both sides. There you go. Later on, we'll cut some of the 1mm acrylic to put in here to cover those. You can scratch them up a little bit to give it that fake light look, or just leave them clear and it'll look like this. Now don't mind the yellow, that's from pushing it in because I painted it yellow, so I'll clean that out. But that's what it should look like. These are what the brake lights look like when they're all folded up. They're in place like this. When you need to take them out on the real machine, you can pull them out. Oh, this paint is really making it tight, but there it goes. There you have it. And then we'll work on the mesh. There's a template for the top, bottom, and the rear, and you're going to use that wire mesh that I recommend later on. All right, moving on. Let's get this put in place. We're going to have two M2 by 6 screws here for this rear piece. And those are going to go one on each side. Make sure you find the holes for this. I'll show you just the back of my hand. And then grab another one. And then we'll do those 2 side panels that go on here. And then when you're done all this and you're ready, we could put on the top piece and then secure this first to the rear section and then put the top piece on top and the rear section that's already attached. I'm still doing some electrical work here because I want to get all the wiring and everything and the mesh put in before I attach it, because it's just more work to attach it that way. But now over here, you're going to also put these handrails in. These slide in, and again, you'll push them in till they're flush. A dab of CA glue to hold them in place. Okay. And then these guys go on the bottom, one on each side. M2 by 6s. Make sure you put your magnets in again, because the magnets are going to go on each side here so that they attract each other. So when these doors close, they stay closed against the magnets. Okay. I've just been going through a little bit of a magnet phase where I think magnets do a really good job for certain things. For example, this piece here, I didn't have to put magnets, but I just put them on anyways in case you wanted to take this off. But I realized after designing it, I didn't need to. So it is an optional thing to put the magnets if you don't want to attach this base as well, right? That's the main reason why I did it. You'll notice there's a couple little tabs in here that this is going to slide into so it stays in place as well. It's just locators. And then you'll put the M2 by 6s in there. And there you go. And do that for the other side. All right, we're going to move on to the cab. I want to start off talking about the magnets. I know before we assemble everything, I'll tell you how to put it all together, but I just want to talk about the magnets for a second. We have a magnet on the outside of the door and a magnet for the inside of the door. And to figure out which one goes where, you can push in one of the magnets on the door first, stick the other one on there, and then when you go to close the door, you can press it in. It's a little bit easier when you have 2 hands. So let me show you with 2 hands. All right, with 2 hands, you're going to put the magnet on the inside and press this kind of hard. You're gonna, oh, it wasn't in the exact spot. We gotta do that. Push it in, and then hopefully she's in her home. Maybe not. Anyways, big old fail. Make sure you know how your magnets go in. Probably the most important part. Okay, so to put the magnets in, put one on one side, make sure the other one on the other side is of the similar polarity. You're gonna get yourself some pliers, make sure this is in, and then you're gonna squeeze it into position. Oh, that didn't work. Put it on this side. All right, take 100. All right, so you're gonna get your other magnet and put it in this hole, and you're gonna press it in. Now make sure it's in properly so it goes in, because if not, it's gonna pop out. And these are all pressed in. because I need to tighten up. Now, you'll see how it goes in just a little bit. Make sure you can get your pliers in there and squeeze it, or get a pair of tweezers if you like and just squeeze it in there and make sure it is flush. Okay, so now that it's like this, it's in there. When we close the door, it closes, it's magnetic, and then we pop the door open. Okay, there you go. Now you might need to make some adjustments on the door because it may not close all the way. See here, sticks out a little bit. So I have to shave a little bit of the inside here so that it closes properly. Make sure all the holes line up. Now the way to do these pins is you'll heat them up and then you'll press them in to the two holes because the holes are a little bit tighter. You can drill them out and put in, I guess, 1.6 screws, whatever you want to do, but I made them a little bit smaller to use paper clips. You take the plastic coating off the paper clip and put that in, and that's how the doors would go. So there you have it. Doors are in, and then this should be lined up a little bit, so I'm going to shave a little bit out the inside so it closes properly all the way through. Now, to put the top part of the cab to the bottom, let's show you how to do that. So continuing on with the doors, just wanted to show you how I do this. So I'll get a paper clip and I'm going to open it up 90 degrees, close to 90 degrees, and I'm going to pick a spot just before the curve here, and I clip that. It's going to be one of our hinge point pieces. And then what you do is you get your X-Acto knife and you shave off this plastic coating. The newer paper clips have a plastic coating. And then get yourself like needle nose and about, let's say, 3-4 millimeters, maybe 4 millimeters, something like that. You bend it and make a 90 degree. And there you go, that's one of your hinges. You're going to slide that into the top, or the middle, or the bottom, whichever one you choose. You're going to push this through. If I can get this to the hole, there we go. And then slide it onto your door frame in the open position so you can line these up. And then you're going to push down. You're going to do that for all the others. Go. No. Gotta line it up just right. And the reason why we put this little 90 is so that you can actually push down. So you can see this one is going in. So wiggle, wiggle. There you go, it's all the way in. And then once you have all of them, the door will close and you'll make sure you have your magnet down here. There you go. That's for the doors. One last thing. The handle, just a little bit of glue, push that in, and then you can open the door as needed. There you go. Alright, let's talk about mating the cab to the bottom base plate here. Now this base plate is raised. Don't worry about the yellow paint there, I just didn't put any tape. But essentially that's going to connect with, this bottom plate's going to connect with the main body, and so it's going to be built up from there. Now this outside piece, this cab main frame, that is attached with 4 M2 by 8 screws, 1 in each corner. Alright, 1 down there, 1 down there. They do pop out the other side. 1 there, 1 there, 1 there, and 1 there. Okay, so you'll attach that to 4 screws. Then, depending on what order you want to put things in, really doesn't matter too much, but I started putting in the front rack for the lights. So there's this side light that shines to the right side if you have like a snowplow or something like that. You have the main headlights. This is for the orange turn signals or hazards, and then the main front lights. You're gonna have your mirrors, and it's a two-piece. So I'll show you what that looks like over here. There's some of this stuff, and essentially it's two pieces that are going to be connected, and depending on how you're configured, there's a left and a right. Okay, so the way it's set up is you'll have this outside piece, and then you're going to have this inside piece. This longer portion faces the bottom, and this is the top, so that we have it nice and level. You'll use some M2 by 8s with some nuts on the end to hold it in place, because this goes on top like that. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay. And then this is for the driver's side. So the mirrors are on this side. The other side would be the opposite. And then when you put them in, there's some holes. You're going to push them in till they're flush with the bottom of the holes. And then you also have your railings here, or these grab bars. And these are all just glued in place. A little CA glue. Pop those in place as well, one on each side. Okay. So you'll have your mirrors, is what it looks like when they're installed. As you can see, the longer piece is on the bottom, the shorter is on the top. The mirrors go in like that. I painted mine and glued them on. That thing is for the lights, see how it's shiny on the inside? Use that chrome pen. Moving around the back, these are all held in with M2 by 6s. Okay, all the screws on the front and the rear light racks are M2 by 6s. This little radar dome, or sorry, the dome beacon light, that just slides into this hole here. Okay, so there's a hole. You'll know which one's the front, which one's the back, because the one in the back has a hole through the middle. Okay, each one has a slight different angle, but essentially all M2 by 6s everywhere. And then you'll mount your lights. There's 3 holes. 2 of them are for the lights. The middle one is for the wiper. So the wiper is going to go in there and be glued in on the back and in the front. There's a wiper that'll go in there. That's after you put the glass in. There's templates for the glass, so make sure you cut your 1mm thick plexi or acrylic glass, and then you can glue it in with, I use Mod Podge. It dries clear and it holds it. You have one for each side here. These holes will look different on yours. There's going to be a bigger hole on the bottom here, possibly. Can't remember anymore. But anyways, you're going to screw the pedestal, which is this piece, and I'll show you to put that in. So there's going to be an M2 by 10 that goes through here to hold this cluster. And then, sorry, this is the cluster here, and these are all the gauges and whatnot that hold the steering wheel. So that holds that piece. And then there's these 2 holes which go through those 2 holes to hold them in place. And then you have the nose guard. It's going to have some bigger holes to go over that stuff so that it's easier. I may or may not have it as one just big hole, and then it slides on, easier to slide on. You'll see the difference. But anyways, this just slides on because there's magnets on the inside here, and then on each side, and I'll show you how to put those on. But you already know how to do the magnets because of the doors. Anyways, that slides on to the gooseneck. The gooseneck's going to have 4 magnets as well. The next thing you do is your floor carpet. It's called a carpet, I think. This goes in. If you want to put some glue, put the glue in. It goes in this way to the front. So if I show you, let's open the door here. This goes in like that. Fits in place. Okay. The next piece, you're going to have the console, or sorry, the chair, whatever this whole thing assembly is called. Anyways, you can paint your dials. So I did a little bit of painting here. I did it quickly. But yeah, there's the knobs and stuff like that for a little bit of realism. Your beer holder, your drink holder, and then you have the joysticks for the C model. If you want the B model, that's a completely different pedestal. It would remove this one here and then have all the different knobs, which would go here. Again, I made the C model because that's just what I wanted to do. Next, this will slide in, okay, and there's nothing holding it, so you can put glue. Now, You're probably wondering, I should have put the seat in first and then put the cab on, but you can actually still put it in. If you slide it in like this is probably a two-handed job. And then what happens is here you would just rotate. So now that it's kind of lying flat, you will lift it and slide it and curl it in place. If I have two hands, you'll be able to see that. Actually, this is done a lot easier without the carpet. So do the carpet second. Let's just remove the carpet and then we can do this. Okay, so to put the seating area in, you're going to want to put this in upside down inside the cab. Now it doesn't matter if the cab's on or not, it's probably easier to put it on before, but you'll bring it all the way down and then you'll rotate it into position, tuck it back, make sure that this back is up against here. Okay, you want to make sure it's like that. So that's now in, and then you'll put your carpet in. It should be a nice snug fit. If it's too tight, get a pair of snips and trim along the back. All right. Next, you'll put the pedestal in. You're going to use some M2 by 8s, 2 of them, and they're going to screw in from the back here. So I'll show you what that looks like. And just before we wrap everything up with this roof, and we'll talk about the lights, we're going to get a bit of glue, put a couple dots. We're putting the seat in for your operator. And the seat position is all the way back, I suppose. And it sits comfortably right in the middle there. And then you can put your driver in. And there you go. Now, when you're done, you're going to have a ceiling or a headliner. It's called a headliner piece. There's these tabs here that kind of correspond with the pillars on the inside. And you're going to press this down until you hit those spots. Now, if you are running wiring for your lights, make sure it stays above this and runs inside these channels and goes down the pillars in the back. Because when you put the roof on, there's this roof plate. There's these tabs that are from this plate. You're going to see these openings in certain areas, and that's to attach this top piece. So these slide in and they'll snap in place, all 4 of these, and then when you put the ceiling on top or the roof, it just pops in place, and there you go. One completed cab ready to be installed on the grader. Make sure you have your glass on, and then the neck will look something like this. If I can find the spot. There you go. Something like that. Again, all your lighting will get tucked into the holes we mentioned. The wipers will go on after you put the glass on. There are templates for the glass, so if you are going to ask questions about how to do it, the acrylic glass is 1 millimeter thick, and you're going to use the templates to cut to that, and then you're just going to glue them in place. And that's the cab complete. All right, let's work a little on the next part here, which is connecting the neck to the main body. Now, we're going to do this by one of 2 methods. The first is either using M3 by 12s or an M3 by 30. So I'm going to do 2 M3 by 30s. There's 2 holes here, and you're going to screw this in. Now you want to make sure that the neck is seated all the way in and it's underneath that little tab. And you're just going to thread this through. And what this does is it holds the neck, but there's also another screw hole here, which you're going to put an M3 by 10 to secure the top so it doesn't pop like one of tension forward. Now, because we have these two going in, there shouldn't be any movement, but you'll notice that these go in, and then we can put on the plate cover here, which is this piece, and there's going to be 4 M2 by 10s that go there on each side, right? 4 on this side, 4 on that side. Now, if you are going to be doing the blade for the snow plow, then you'll have to make sure you take those M2 by 10s out and then put the other M2 by 12s on the 4 on the one side and then 2 on this side for the servo that goes underneath. And I'll show you how to do that here in a minute. But well, the plow, that's for another video for another time. But for now, this piece will go on and we'll put those screws in. So do these up and then put the M3 by 10 up here. Okay, so I've installed a lot here between installation video stuff, but essentially we've put this piece on here. Okay, so the 4 M2 by 10s. Now I'm modifying a little bit here because the screw kind of gets in the way, so I'll update that file. So you'll see it looks a little bit different than what it is right now. You can install these little lights here. They are 3mm lights, white, and this slides in like this. And that goes into that slot. Just above it, there's a hole to run your wiring through. And then there's 2 holes over there. That's for your wipers once you put in your glass. This here has the 4 magnets. It's tight enough that it probably doesn't even need magnets, to be honest. I just thought it was going to be loose, but it isn't. I may loosen it a little just for the sake of having that there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put some M2 screws in here to hold down the cab. So we'll do that next just to show you, but I'm going to have to take it all apart because I have to finish the wiring. Now, when you are fishing your wiring, you're going to have all the wiring. Depending on what you do, if you put that metal bar in here to add weight, then you have to use this top. If you don't, you have a big space to run all your wiring through. And then it'll just come out the back here behind this cover. And then you have to run all that wiring behind this guy here. And it goes down into the space here. When you look behind, there's all this wiring that comes out of that hole. So I'm going to add another hole on this side so you have space on both sides to run all the wiring. And then it all comes back here where you're going to terminate everything, put a battery on this side, and then on that side you can put your ESCs and whatever else you're going to have if you're going to have like a sound kit or whatnot. There's lots of space in here. May even put like a shelf here to put my SFR1 on top because it is doesn't fit in there properly, so it may just actually be up here hanging. And then yeah, you've got more space back here, more space here because this actually goes all the way forward. Okay, and the wiring's kind of holding it back. And then you have a lot of space back here underneath and up top. There's space underneath here too so that it can all sit in the bottom. Lots of space for everything. Next we'll attach the back pieces once I get that all finished and painted, but kind of get the idea. The roof, again, put that there. Mount all your hardware, all M2s, and for the mirrors, this one's pretty loose, so we'll tighten that guy up a little bit. I think it's just this top one. Yeah, and then after we're going to run all the wiring to the back, you're going to make all your connections to your ESCs. Your ESCs are going to go to the receiver. From the receiver, we'll do a quick little demo here. Don't mind the SFR1. It is just for my purposes, but you can get one if you want. So the receiver has all the servo leads, the connectors, but they go to these ESCs. These are the tiny ESCs. You can use, what are they? The ones from Magom. They're the BS5s. Similar thing. If you're in Europe, get those. They're relatively cheap. But here, these are about 30 some odd dollars. And I know, ooh, that's expensive. Go and get the bigger ones then. These just are very good for the small N20 motors, which are in pretty much everything in here except for the big boys. The big boys are still gonna, actually this guy right here still has one of these because it doesn't need a lot of power and it's not gonna be used very often, so it's okay. But for everything else, sure, if you want to use your Chinese ESCs, go for it. This is a 3S system, so do not use a 2S because you will have no power or limited power on everything. So yeah, go with that. Then connect all your ESCs to the wires that go to the motors, and then these guys will go to the battery. And there's a whole bunch because I think I have almost 7 ESCs, and that's to run all the different functions. You don't have to do all these functions if you don't want to have a tilt and you don't want to have a moving board, or you don't want to have that like, I don't know, I call it the panhard because it keeps the alignment of the up and down, or the tilt here. You can disengage everything and put the solid pieces in so you don't have to move them. And that's it for most of the installation. There are probably a last couple things to add on, but for the most part, that's most of it. And there's an instruction manual on how to install this. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. Okay, to attach the rear hood after you've installed, so what I did for the mesh is I just put super glue or CA glue, and the rear one I didn't put anything because it just fits there in case I have to take it out. It's a bit more challenging, but in essence all the meshes are on. You can choose whatever mesh you want, but to put this on you're going to need some M2 by 10s, and you're going to open it up a little bit, slide this in, and you're going to fasten it that way. All right. And it should be okay because there's enough of an angle here and there's an opening. If this was just solid all the way through, it'd probably be, I'd have to rethink it, but there we go. So now this piece closes and it opens. Okay, there you go. And then the door is also open and the door is closed. So when you put this all on here, and all the wiring is in and not in the way, this should slide on. You'll fasten the tops, and then this guy should just close. Of course, all the wires are hanging out. Need wires to go in. If they want to go in. Underneath, not above. There you go. So now when this closes, it should close, and then this bottom will hit the magnet at the back. So this has to be fastened. Again, I have wires hanging out everywhere and stopping it from going, but once you get it all in place, it should hold down with the magnet, and then there you have it. All done. One other thing, stairs glued in. Now, if you're going to do the snow blade, like the plow on the opposite side, do not put the stairs on the opposite side because they'll be in the way of the piece that's going to go in here. Actually, you could put the stairs there, but normally I would probably take them out or put them in if you want and see if there's spacings there. I don't know if there's spacing because this whole contraption is the front, and it does the blade up and down and the turning of the blade. And this piece here goes right where this is. So in essence, it's going to go, let me just do it upside down for now, but essentially it'll go right here. It won't be in the way, but it will be kind of in the way. So it's up to you. Put it in if you want or not. This also goes up and down based on the ground. And there should be a little spring in here, but I think we're just going to let it float. So there you go. Okay, to attach the rear hood after you've installed, so what I did for the mesh is I just put super glue or CA glue, and the rear one I didn't put anything because it just fits there in case I have to take it out. It's a bit more challenging, but in essence all the meshes are on. You can choose whatever mesh you want, but to put this on, you're going to need some M2 by 10s, and you're going to open it up a little bit, slide this in, and you're going to fasten it that way. All right. And it should be okay because there's enough of an angle here and there's an opening. If this was just solid all the way through, it'd probably be, I'd have to rethink it, but there we go. So now this piece closes and it opens. Okay, there you go. And then the door is also open and the door is closed. So when you put this all on here and all the wiring is in and not in the way, this should slide on. You'll fasten the tops, and then this guy should just close. Of course, all the wires are hanging out. Need wires to go in. If they want to go in. Underneath, not above. There you go. So now when this closes, it should close, and then this bottom will hit the magnet at the back. So this has to be fastened. Again, I have wires hanging out everywhere and stopping it from going, but once you get it all in place, it should hold down with the magnet, and then there you have it. All done. One other thing, stairs glued in. Now, if you're going to do the snow blade, like the plow on the opposite side, do not put the stairs on the opposite side because they'll be in the way of the piece that's going to go in here. Actually, you could put the stairs there, but normally I would probably take them out or put them in if you want and see if there's spacings there. I don't know if there's spacing because this whole contraption is the front and it does the blade up and down and the turning of the blade. And this piece here goes right where this is. So in essence, it's going to go, let me just do it upside down for now, but essentially it'll go right here. It won't be in the way, but it will be kind of in the way. So it's up to you. Put it in if you want or not. This also goes up and down based on the ground. And there should be a little spring in here, but I think we're just going to let it float. There you go. Moving on to the wiring here. I'm just using my old setup, but I'll walk you through all of this. You have your receiver. I have the SFR1 from Bear. You don't need to use that. You could just use a big ESC for this guy here. Probably a Hobby Wing 1060, or you can get something a little bit more powerful. Something like this, a CL9030 brushed ESC. It's a little bit bigger. It's smoother and everything. It works on my loader and love it. I think it's better than the 1060s. It costs around the same price, but it'll power these bigger motors because it is one of those 37 mils. So needs a little bit more power, but essentially that's the way I would go for that big motor. For this one here, for the articulation, I'm still going to use these tiny ESCs. Literally, that's what they're called. They're from FingerTech. If you're in Europe and you don't want to get them from here, go to Magum. They have the BS5. They're the same thing, essentially. It's just a mini 3S ESC. This handles 3S, no problems. So go look at that. But essentially, we're going to start connecting up our leads. Now, everything from the, don't mind the big cable here for the soldering iron. So essentially, all the motors, right? Your two front motors, any other motors that need power are going to run all the wiring either through the top here, or if you don't put that big metal bar inside here, you'll run all your wires through there, through the neck here, underneath, and out the back either side, because I'm going to have holes on both sides. You can run all your wiring. I've run it through one side because I realized it's pretty tight, and I don't know how much articulation I'm going to use, but essentially it's an option there. But you want to have it on both sides so there's a little bit of flexibility. cut your wires long enough that they'll meet, you know, roughly around where the motor will be, so that if we do have articulation, there's a little bit of flex in the cable. You're gonna connect your red and black wires from the motors, and you will need to extend these because these only go so long. So you'll probably have to solder in a connection here and then run the rest of the wiring back here, measure how long you need. For all the other wires here, about 3 feet, because it has to loop back to the front here, go through here, wire it's all the way back here, and you're going to need to trim it down. I did about, I'd say, 2.5 to 3 feet. You really want to have a little bit extra. You don't want it just poking out here because then it's going to be pretty tight. So ESC, again, these tiny ESCs, your ESC may be just red and black wires. You're gonna have to figure out which red and black wires go to the motors and which red and black wire go to a battery source. I have put in a part number for ordering this. Essentially, it's a power distribution board. One side is ground, which is the black, one side is positive. You're gonna put this in here, and that's where all your power is gonna come. So all these little black and red wires are gonna connect to this thing, and then you will have power for it all. So essentially what I've done here is I put a little bit of heat shrink before, made my soldering connections to the ESC. This ESC is gonna go to channel 3 because that's the channel for one of these booms. I don't know which one's which right now and don't really care. I just need them soldered up. Once I see which one's which, I could always switch the servo connector here, and then that way they're tuned to that. Or I can go into my transmitter and just change the channels. Either way works for me, but if you have a simple, like one of those Fly Sky ISXs or 6s or whatever they're called, you can't change the channels, so you'll just swap out the servo wires. All right, so you do that for all the different connections you're gonna have. If you're gonna have the rotating, the tilt, the slide, all 3 of these, plus the panhard bar here version, whatever it's called, I don't know what that cylinder is, but anyways, this one here for keeping everything in the middle or offset. You're going to need to set that all up over there. If you want to have all these functioning, you can. If you do not want them functioning, you do not need to wire them up, and you'll use just the solid cylinders that I've provided where they don't move. They just stay in that one solid position. So, for example, the tilt here, it'll be a cylinder that looks like this, but this will not move. It'll stay in this position to hold the blade in that position. Same thing with the tilt. If you don't want the tires to tilt, you can put in the cylinder that's solid, which is what I'm probably going to end up doing because I'm not a huge fan of this tilted wheel, but I just did it just to show that it can work. Same thing for the slide. If you don't want this to slide, you don't have to, and you can just put in the fake cylinder that stays there. Same with the panhard. These guys, for sure, you're going to want to have that because you need it to go up and down, and you want the rotate so the blade rotates. So if you want a simpler version, if you don't want articulation, we'll just put in a solid bar here on both sides so it doesn't articulate, and you keep it simple. So there's those options.